Happy day, happy day. I pray that you're having a great day this morning. Start off having a great day in your mind, regardless of what the weather looks like. I am here to go over my morning devotion. Welcome to the Sheila C. Hill Show. I just really want to um, go over a book that I'm reading. It is called The Circle Maker by Mark Batterson, and it is prayer circles around your biggest dreams and greatest fears. And as I was reading this morning, I said, I'm just going to go and see who wants to go over this book. If you want to get the book, you let me tell you, it's talking about prayer and faith. And listen, we cannot have too much of prayer and faith. So we're going to go over chapter 1. I'm just going to read it. It's very, very short chapters, and that's what I like about it. But it's a great way to start your morning, increase your faith, and just give you inspiration. And of course, we want to start our mornings off like that. So in chapter 1, we're talking about the legend of the circle maker. So what is the circle maker? So we're going to go over that in chapter 1. Okay, young children danced in the downpour like it was the first rainfall they'd ever seen. And it was. Parents threw back their heads, opened their mouths, and caught raindrops like they were liberations, and they were. When it hadn't rained in more than a year, raindrops applauded. Raindrops are like diamonds falling from the sky. It would be forever remembered as the day thunderclaps applauded the Almighty, the day puddle jumping became an act of praise, the day the legend of the circle maker was born. It was the first century BC, and a devastating drought threatened to destroy a generation, the generation before Jesus. The last of the Jewish prophets had died off nearly 4 centuries before. Miracles was such a distant memory that they seemed like a false memory, and God was nowhere to be heard. But there was one man who lived outside the walls of Jerusalem who dared to pray anyway. His name was Honi. And even if the people could no longer hear God, he believed that God could hear them. When the rain is plentiful, it's an afterthought. During a drought, it's the only thought. And Honi was their only hope, famous for his ability to pray for rain. It was on this day, the day, that Honi would earn his moniker. With a 6-foot staff in his hand, Honi began to turn like a math compass. His circular movement was rhythmical and in 90 degrees, 180 degrees, then 270 degrees, then 160 degrees. He never looked up as the crowd looked on. After what seemed like hours, but had only been seconds, Honi stood inside the circle he had drawn. Then he dropped to his knees and raised his hands to heaven. With the authority of the prophet Elijah, he called down the fire from heaven. Honi called down rain. He said, Lord of the universe, I swear before your great name that I will not move from this circle until you have shown mercy upon your children. The words sent a shudder down the spines of all who were within earshot that day. It wasn't just the volume of his voice, it was the authority of his tone, not a hint of doubt. This prayer didn't originate in the vocal cords, like water from a vase. The, the, the words flowed from the depth of his soul. His prayer was resolute yet humble, confident yet meek, expectant yet unassuming. Then it happened. As his prayer ascended to the heavens, raindrops descended to the earth. An audible gasp swept across thousands of the congregants who had encircled Honi. Every head turned heavenward as the first raindrops parachuted from the sky. But Honi's head remained bowed. The people rejoiced over every drop, but Honi wasn't satisfied with a sprinkle. Still kneeling within the circle, Honi lifted the voice, the sounds of the celebration. He said, "Not for such rain that I prayed, but for rain that will fill the basins and pits and caverns." The sprinkle turned into such a torrential downpour. The eyewitnesses said no raindrop was smaller than an egg in size. It rained so heavily and so steadily that the people fled to the Temple Mount to escape the flash floods. Honi stayed and prayed inside his protracted circle. Once more, he refined his bold request. He said, "Not for such rain have I prayed, but for rain of your favor, blessing, and graciousness." Then, like a well proportioned sun shower on a hot and humid August afternoon, it began to rain calmly, peacefully. Each raindrop was tangible token of God's grace. And they didn't just soak the skin, they soaked the spirit with faith. It had been difficult to believe the day before the day after the day. It was impossible not to believe. Eventually, the dirt turned into mud and back into dirt again. After quenching their thirst, the crowd dispersed, and the rainmaker returned to his humble home on the outskirts of Jerusalem. Life returned to normal, but the legend of the circle maker had been born. Honi was celebrated as a hometown hero by the people whose lives he saved. But some within the Sanhedrin called the circle maker in question. A fraction believed that drawing a circle and demanding rain dishonored God. Maybe it was those same members of the Sanhedrin who would criticize Jesus for healing a man's shriveled hand on the Sabbath a generation later. They threatened Honi with excommunication, but because the miracle could not be denied, Honi was ultimately honored for his act of prayerful bravado. The prayer that saved a generation was deemed one of the most significant prayers in the history of Israel. The circle he drew in the sand became a sacred symbol, and the legend of Honi, the circle maker, stands forever as a testament to the power of a single prayer to change the course of history. That is the end of chapter 1. Listen, I'm going to go over this book, and whoever wants to join me, if you want to get a copy of this book, and it really focuses about prayer and your faith. I have read several chapters so far, and believe me, if you are a believer, if you are a Christian, and you need inspiration, this is something that you would definitely will love to get into to start your morning, because at the end of the day, we need the inspiration and we need to understand the power. Because if you look at Honey, he trusted God to make it rain, because without the rain, you cannot live without the water, right? So he trusted God that he will, if he pray and he focus, and the demand of it, it's not just much more of a demand, it is standing on the promises of God, because God says if you pray for it, if you ask for it in my name, it shall come to pass. And that's what he did. He stood on the word of God, and it began to rain. So with this, I will go over the next chapter on tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Listen, enjoy your day. And if no one has told you, you are loved and highly appreciated. Do not dim your light. Do not put a lampshade on your light, because you are here for a purpose, and it is time for you to walk in your season. Have a blessed day.